right, Joe, appreciate you spending some time with us. Obviously, you spent an exhaustive amount of time looking through the websites that came through from a submission standpoint. Just general thoughts, satisfaction level for what you're seeing. Are we still way behind the time and where we should be from a development website standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is yes, behind the time. So now what makes me say that? The sites looked beautiful. A lot of the sites that we looked at just were just pleasing to the eye. I'm a frustrated graphic artist. I went to school for art, right? So if I was actually really good graphic artist, I'd still be doing it. But I do have an eye for that and know what to look for. So graphically pleasing, substance light. So if you think about what happens with other industries, so you take like the automotive industry, the Harvard Business Review did a great article on how people buy cars. So the average person spends 14 and a half hours buying cars. 70% of that time is self-directed research. 30% of the back 30, the last 30 is on the lot.
Right.
Okay. And that last 30%, if the prices aren't on the cars, they walk off the lot before they're even engaged with sales guy. Right. So there's such a demand for content. There's such a demand for transparency and content streams that people can trust. I didn't see that to the extent that where this is actually going. Right. So residential real estate, it's the same thing. So the real estate agents back in I think it was 2006, the internet changed the whole role from I sell real estate to I'm actually a buyer facilitator.
Right.
And the buyers actually telling them what homes they want to see. It's not the other way around, right? So I think we're designing sites still from where the market's been, and I think that's a bad way to design. I think you got to design for where it's going.
Yeah.
So a lot of the sites that we saw, I would have said the content was too light. It was a lot unbalanced, too emotional. They're looking for the emotional hook versus creating a business case, right? So for me, that makes a good website, it's just a classical business story. What makes this business unique? What makes it profitable? What makes it valuable to the customer? What makes it defensible in the marketplace? And what makes it sustainable for the long haul, right? So yeah, just basically if you had to think through a model, I would say look at the executive summary of a business plan and the type of elements that you'd expect to see in that, right? And that allows the investor to just blink the concept quickly, right? Is this something that makes sense to me? Is this something I think I'd be good at? Does this fit my investment parameters? And if it does, then they opt in, but when they opt in, they're engaged. So I think we've almost booted the franchise opportunity website, which I believe is the most critical tool in the entire history of franchise sales. Like Fran Connect puts out the franchise sales index. It's something like 50 or 60% of the deals, like the last thing they do is come through the site. Now that doesn't even count the deals that use the website as a lead nurturing tool, right? So the website is mission critical. I don't think we're just telling a robust enough, transparent enough, and business oriented story. It's almost like we've kicked the copy to our marketing departments as opposed to the expository business writers, right? So we get stuff like sink your teeth into this mouth-watering opportunity, or own your slice of the $40 billion pizza pie, or my personal favorite, own the t-shirt business that fits you like a tee. I mean, now if you're going to invest $300,000, right, and another $500,000 worth of lease liability, really? Is that what you think people are looking for? So we have a saying in our because we design sites and do content, and we have a saying in our industry, in our office: cute doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want to be cute. We want to be transparent.
Yeah, a lot to unwrap there. I'm going to share some comments of what you said, and I agree with pretty much all of it. One, it's interesting the reference to buying a car. I find it fascinating because if you even dove in further and the buyer could actually go and buy a car without having to be sold, it would probably change another element. So I still feel like franchising is going to have to evolve the way that you react when someone inquires. And there's some stuff that we're exploring, like just asking, are you just looking for information, so that we can just give them the information. And so when I went, I happen to own a Tesla, and when I went and bought that 3 years ago, I was not sold. I walked in, I selected what I wanted, I got to do my homework, I got to test drive it when I wanted to. It was very passive sales process. I felt good. I got to experience buying a car the way that I want to buy a car. On the reverse too, these brands that try overselling, and there's brands that definitely oversell. You can't oversell someone into this, because if you do, that's going to hurt your system long term, because odds are you're going to say yes to the wrong people throughout the process. So if we start unwrapping everything from, you take the development website to the sales process, the way people are being sold, to the expectations that are coming from the CEO, to put the pressures on here, to some marketing companies say, let's put some catchy phrase on there because magically that's going to make more leads come in. It is so chaotic that when you go back to the fundamentals of what do people want in a sales process, great information, transparent information, you're going to have bad out there too. Address it. Be willing to say, yeah, we made a mistake with this franchisee. But if brands aren't willing to invest in the sales process and invest right into franchise development and invest right into technology and invest right into content,
Right.
this is all a pipe dream, because at some point someone's going to have to go back and say, guys, you're doing it all wrong. Really listen to us in this. And it's not, I've heard you say it. It's not, how many leads does it take to get a deal? One. I think that's the most amazing thing ever, because we're not in the business of generating leads. We're in the business of generating the right people that are going to buy. And if that website is just garbage and doesn't do it, then what's the point?
Well, that's you're 100% right. And I know you agree with me from an ideological standpoint, because we've had these conversations in the past, but even something like invest in the sales process, I don't want my clients to invest in a sales process, because I don't see this as a sales role.
Yeah, good point.
Anywhere that I
Right.
see building out your infrastructure for your executive team as sales, right?
Yeah, right.
It's talent acquisition, right? It's talent management. We should be training everybody in executive recruiting techniques, not sales techniques. Now, I'm not going to say there's not salesmanship that needs to be done in the process. I am going to say it's sales inside of an executive recruiting paradigm, as opposed to executive recruiting inside of a sales paradigm.
Right.
Now, that's the shift.
Right.
I think ideologically, I'd like to see franchisors make. And you know who's already made that is iconic growing brands, right? They just, they just know who fits. They know who doesn't.
Is it because
and
of
they
their
double
cash?
down. And they're not afraid
strength?
of walking away from deals.
Is that because of their strength from a cash perspective? Is part of this because we try to cut everybody equal, and when you segment them out, like an emerging brand, there are brands that sell to keep the lights on versus an established brand that is growing the right way. Is it part because shame on us as an industry by pooling all this crazy data as a collective versus the right segments?
No, I think you said it right when you're saying like you're not going to get to a regional or national brand unless you're recruited the right way as an emerging growth or early stage brand, right? So if you're asking me what's the real culprit, it's there's a tremendous amount of misinformation from early set. Either A, there's no data, B, there's the wrong data, or C, people are ignoring the data about what it takes to from a money standpoint to launch a franchise brand.
Right.
It's $1 to $2 million. That's what it is. Somehow we've been circulating, and I think if you're asking me who's the culprit, I would say that cottage industry of attorneys and what we call franchisor packagers that take a concept and say, hey, for $250,000 you could build a national brand, and we're going to take 150 that 250 and we'll show you how. Right. And you can launch a franchise brand for 250. You just can't run it profitably.
Not well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, as soon as you get, it takes $1 million. If you're not starting with a war chest, of $1 million, you're undercapitalized.
I know what the answer to this question is. So call it somewhat of a dumb question, but shouldn't there be a governing body larger than what exists that is saying viable franchise opportunity, the stamp of approval, shouldn't there be someone above this saying that's not, your brand is not ripe for franchising? No, you cannot be a franchise. No, you don't have the financial bandwidth. Shouldn't there?
It is, Nick. How many nearly $1 trillion industries are still the Wild West? So I told you I'm writing this book on franchise ideology and strategy, and how it's a 20-year study, because I've been doing this 35 years. It takes about 20 years to build a national brand. And what's the run over a 20-year period? What does it have to look like? And what stages do franchisors go through, right? And so part of what's missing is there's no transparent information or no playbook that franchisors can use to even gauge, where they are relative to the industry. Second, there's no real industry data. So if you believe franchising an industry like I do, I believe it's an industry, and 80% of what happens, as long as it's a franchisor, is probably applicable across every investment level, every category, every consumer-facing model, and 20% is nuanced. What you're seeing, to your point, so the automotive afterparts industry is 50% of what franchising aggregates, as far as it's a $300 billion industry, right? But if you're in the automotive industry, you can get a PhD in automotive engineering, right? There's all kinds of analysts. There's content streams people can trust. There's a whole ecosystem, sophisticated ecosystem, either to inform the auto buyer, to support the dealerships, to support the aftermarket repair shops,
right,
and to keep autos on the road and affordable, right? To the human being. And you've got rating systems, like you got JD Powers, right? You've got transparent, robust websites with content streams people can trust, like the Auto Buying Guide, like Carfax. Okay, we don't have any of that, right? So or to any of it in any real meaningful rating systems, meaningful analysts, meaningful writers. We just don't have that, right? So if you're asking me, is legislation the issue? I would say no. I would like to see more robust people or companies step up and just own that piece and create grading systems and do things to protect the entrepreneur. Because at the end of the day, and I think you do this too, I got in it for the entrepreneur. When my first 30 days on the job, when I was working with Subway when they had 400 units, and I was their second franchise sales guy, and there was only 39 people in the company. When I got my first lead, I'm talking to people. I don't come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad lived in the same house 45 years, had the same job 40 years, right? Not exactly a change agent or a disruptor, right? So, but when I listen to people and they said, just tell me their goals and their dreams and their pain, and I'd say, wow, where am I ever going to get the product? With the product being taking people's elusive dreams and goals and giving it back to them as a very real possibility if they did business with me. It's like answering prayers. I mean, I saw that as a really holy and divine calling. That's how I see it. And I do think we spend more time trying to, as a community, being franchisor centric, trying to trick people into business that shouldn't be in business, than flipping the model on its head. I think we should exist for the sole purpose of making entrepreneurs successsul. Yeah, and I don't think we've made that quantum paradigm shift as an industry yet, but that'll come because there's too much risk, right? So the franchise candidate will demand that level of transparency because they're getting it in every other industry.
Yeah, a few points. One, I agree with you on just the pure content. Call it JD Powers. If there's some sort of governing body that is done through a collective of approvals and transparency, then all of a sudden there's credible sources or resources for the prospect to go to understand a brand. And what's interesting about the car industry, if Lexus gets a bad rating on a car, Lexus says, great, I appreciate that data. Let's try to make it better the next time around. In franchising, we get bad information. We're like, where's that rug? Where's that rug? We got to put it under there because
But
we don't want
so
our
did the
prospects
auto
seeing it.
industry 20 years ago. Did you ever? Maybe you didn't buy a car. You might be a little too young to get. My first car I bought in 1981 when I was 21 years old. There wasn't a sleazier experience in the entire world than going to an auto dealer. But at the end of the day, who's in charge? It's the buyer. And when the buyer refuses and they start saying no, companies get choked off and reinvent, and the auto industry is reinvented. You just bought a Tesla. My VP of Ops just bought a Tesla. So I was in the showroom when she was picking it up. It is a totally different buying experience.
It's amazing.
Right? I mean, and disruptive forces have a tendency to come in from the outside, right? And it takes an Elon Musk to look at how stupid the auto buying process has been. Well, it was a lot stupider before the internet and before some of these other changes that they've made. It's gotten much more user friendly. He just took it to another level. But that level of sophistication, automation, transparency has not yet made its way into franchising. But I believe at that point of disruption where the buyer's seeing it everywhere else, and they're going to demand transparency and demand that type of trust level that they can get at a Tesla dealership, because there's much more risk buying a business, and it's much more disruptive than buying a car. Yeah. So why don't we have it? And they will just gravitate to these companies that provide them that.
So I'm hopeful that brands will eventually evolve to having the right thing. I'll give you a real life example, because I'm not afraid to hide this stuff. If you were to look on Glassdoor for the company that I operate, you will see some rough reviews. And I've looked at it and said, all right, let's read through this. Now there's things that we can learn of how we get it right the next time, which I do. But underneath it, it says, you guys are a pitch shop. You guys make too many phone calls. Well, yeah, we work with brands that we got to disrupt. We got to get in front of that reporter and make them even listen to us for 2 seconds on why they should write about this human that decided to invest their life savings into a brand. It is not easy for what we do. So I read it. I'm like, that's great information for our client. But what do we learn out of that? Well, we've made mistakes in hiring. So if we're a franchise brand, we brought in the wrong franchisees. That's on us to try to correct it and have answers for how do we make sure we're transparent in what we expect out of people when they come into our place. At some point, call it the website of not just saying, hey, 5-star reviews. It starts saying, yeah, we had a franchisee that didn't work out. Here's why they didn't work out. Here's what we wish we would have done better. Call them and ask them questions about their experience, because if it doesn't align with you, you might have that same bad experience. And at some point, if we can get to transparency and say, it is real. This is truth on our brands. Here's how much it costs. Here's how much you better come to the table with operating capital. Then maybe the franchisees find a little bit more success with a good idea that was franchisable, and maybe they make a little bit more money, which maybe allows them to grow their portfolio, which maybe allows them to change their life. But at some point, it's going to start with someone stepping up and saying, screw it, we don't have to behave like everyone else. And that I would say that's my frustration with the websites, is if you close your eyes or just put the same logo on all of them, a lot of them are the same site just over and over again. And if what that means is the consumer experience is actually the sales process, that's the education thing. Like, I love that burger. I want to see what it is. And all that is a form that you fill out. Great. But at the end of the day, if it's all the same experience, then the end of the day, we're all competing against and for the same prospect, qualified, ready to buy. It doesn't matter what widget we're selling. It's just qualified and ready to buy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm off my soapbox.
But there's a lot of so our clients would have made that shift.
Yeah.
Because that's where we design from, right? Yeah. It's interesting. Remember I told you the website is the single most important piece of content in the history of franchising. You want me to tell you this? What I think the second piece is?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the follow-up piece that people get after they sign the website, because they still don't want to talk to you, right? So we're actually designing now in 2 tranches. So tranche 1 would be what the information content we put on the website. So the high-level business case, we talked about what makes the business unique, profitable, sustainable for the long haul, necessary to the customer, and what does it take to win as a franchisee. Okay. And we're letting them self-select out. Here's the qualifications.
Right.
And if they opt in, they get a whole nother level
Love it.
of privileged information, like the item 19. The item 17, certain sections from the FDD,
Right.
product reviews, Yelp. So it's a robust second wave of content designed to inform. So by the time they get to a franchise recruiter, they should know what the story is. They should know what it takes to win. They should know what the investment parameters are. Get a reasonable expectation as far as returns and ramps, right? So the question that wouldn't be answered yet is, maybe is my territory available? That could be certainly answered on the web. And am I a fit for this company? What's the culture? What's the vision? Where's this thing going? Where's the innovation? Right? So just it allows the franchise recruiter just to engage in robust conversations. So one of the things we haven't talked about, Nick, is how the industry has propped up some real hack franchisee recruiters for 20 years, right? That need the brand to carry them because they can't carry a brand. They haven't kept up with their skill level. I think what you're going to see is a real high demand for skilled practitioners that can march a brand downfield and understand how to integrate content and lead generation and process, into the overall value equation to recruit franchisees, right? And not the next lead franchisee recruiter or hardcore sales guy that exists today, because they don't build brands. They just slam deals through. That doesn't add value to the company, and it could break the company, to your point, downstream. Not every deal is good, and not every royalty dollar has the same margin attached to it.
Good luck selling to private equity later on when you let a sales guy sell to whoever had a dime, which means the value of your franchisees are less than optimal, which means you're going to leave money on the table, Mr. or Mrs. Founder, that created a great idea, just made the wrong decisions in this push the pedal down harder than your brand should allow.
Well, that's what's going to happen. If you ask me what's the game changer, it's going to be private equity, but probably not the first generation of private equity because they don't know anything about franchising.
Right.
It's when they have enough pain and they realize that franchising is a business unto itself, and they start, looking for skilled franchisor practitioners and bring them in early, right? In the investigation and diligence and some of the other things, and kind of almost like like you would bring in a talent scout, right? If you're evaluating a baseball team, a baseball player, a basketball player, you're going to start seeing, I think, more and more private equity bringing in people that have done it on their watch as part of the overall value equation, working with them long-term, giving them board seats, and being the franchisor kind of domain area expert to help them grow their investments. And your other things, imagine, Nick, this is what's going to happen. Imagine, because we have two private equity firms as clients now. We're adding more. But they were looking at investment. They said, hey, what's it going to take to grow this chain? Like worst case scenario. And I'm talking to a $2 billion private equity firm. I said, $2 million is my worst case scenario to take them for where they are now in a turnaround situation to position the brand where they need to be. And they all started laughing because they're spending, VC is spending $50, $100 million in companies with no product, right? No earnings, no customers, on technology to try to solve a need that people don't even know they have, right? So it's, when they say wait, I can build a national brand on $2 million. Let me go to my sofa cushions.
Let me get this out for you. Here you go. We're good.
Because that's what they have. So it's so relative to the investment, right? So franchising could give private equity, VC type returns with mezzanine financing risk.
Yeah. Right.
So, right. If it's done right. So a lot of franchisors, this is what's going to look like. You're going to see marginal brands of 30 to 50 units are going to wake up one day and they're going to have a $50 million cash injection into their competitors. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And all they're doing is, it's the easiest way to grow. So you and I would both know to grow a national brand is, 500 to 1,000 units. Doesn't matter what it is. Sure. Right. It's about when you get national name recognition. If you roll up 10, 50 unit companies, you got a national brand. And a lot of these franchisors are going to get rolled up at a discount because they're not making money, and they're going to be and their franchisees are going to reflag. That's probably what's going to happen.
There is
Just because they don't do it right. Just because they didn't do it right. And they're not going to roll up at a premium, right? It's going to be at the expense of everything they wanted
expense. To. Yeah, their dreams are going to be shattered too, and that's a thing. I think now, hopefully, someone, maybe one human being, watches what we just discussed and walks away and says, "Let me push the pause button for a second. Let me talk with real people about what is the right advice to do this the right way." Odds are, I mean, there's plenty of suppliers who feed a whole bunch of garbage that say, we're going to get you the biggest stuff in the world. We're going to make you great. And then, 5 years from now, that brand is stuck in the same place. So eventually, maybe there's a community of honesty and transparency that allows us to have this impact for the brands.
I mean, if you think about it, I mean, you go back to part of the market disruption is too many franchisors, not enough franchise candidates. So if you're asking me, wow, why are there so many franchisors coming in, not more buyers coming in? It's because it's a better deal for the franchisor. Right. So you got the franchisor. If you look at margins above break even on royalty dollars, a lot of franchisors are operating off of 40, 50, 60, 70% or more flow through to the bottom line on incremental royalty dollars. Franchisees aren't operating on that.
Not like that.
Franchisors sometimes have EBITDAs of 30 to 50%. Franchisees have 12 to 15. Right? Yeah. So the franchisor business model is not in alignment with the franchisee model. We say we are, we're really not, right? So Nick, let me ask you a question. So this is why you look at franchising. So franchising is an apprenticeship model, right? So forget everything you know about franchising, right? Okay. Everything you know about franchising. Now, what if I was to come to you with the following business proposition? You tell me if you would do it. Hey, Nick, I have this apprenticeship model. I'm going to teach you my business. And for only $35,000, I'll show you how. Okay, then you're on your own. I might help you. I'll give you some coaching. I'm not going to commit to that. Right? But from time to time, I may. Now, what I want for that is about a third of everything you earn for the next 10 years. Now, you can transfer and sell your business to anybody you want, but I'm going to prove the deal because I'm taking a third of everything that they earn too into perpetuity. Would you do that deal?
No.
I mean, but that's the deal. Like, so if you take the royalty stream and you compare it against the earnings, because it's coming off the top, if a franchisor earn, let's say a franchisee is earning 12 points, they'll flow through to the bottom line, and the franchisor charges 6% royalty. That's a third. That's a third of the discretionary income. So our franchisors are worth a third of what I earn. Some are, but a lot aren't. And those are the ones that are going to struggle moving forward. So I think the next generation of franchisors, there has to be greater alignment of risk and reward between the franchisor and the franchisee. Franchising has never done for franchisors what franchisors do for franchisees, which is codify the model. Right? So if you be franchising as a business unto itself, like I do, okay, well, where's the playbook?
Right.
In 150 years, it's never been written. Right. So a project we're doing, and you're actually one of the guys I was going to reach out to on this. So I spent the last 3 years writing the playbook on a strategic and ideological level. It's done. So our premise is we're moving into the third era of franchising. So franchise 1.0 was like my first boss was Fred DeLuca.
Yeah, right.
Right. So Fred used to sit around meetings. He'd say, I can own them, I can franchise them. Chocolate or vanilla, right? That's what franchise was. My customer, my brand, my system, my product, my, right? Okay. And then franchisees were just nothing more than distribution points.
That's it,
right? OPM, right? Then our generation, even though I'm a lot older than you, our generation was the first generation of professional franchise executives, right? So we said, hey, time out. We're 2.0. We said franchising is a business unto itself, but how does it actually work? So we kind of spent our careers, nibbling on the periphery of what, UPR, me, lead generation, Fran Dev, and culture, and the banks on financing, et cetera, and so on. So we've built this kind of Rube Goldberg hodgepodge of franchising model through reductionism, right? We start here. What's franchising? What are the pieces? And then we build out the pieces, but we don't really pay attention to how these pieces fit together.
Right.
Like, so Frank Connect would be a good example of that. Is it really the system franchisors should be on to be a data bank, right? A data room. So then there's that. 3.0, I think, is really going to be private equity, a couple generations of private equity, because they're spending billions, and they think they're buying a consumer-facing model. They're finding. I have 2 private equity firms as clients now. I never thought that was going to happen, and now I'm being hired to do diligence on acquisitions because they don't know how to look under the hood.
Yeah, they don't know how to.
Franchisor, like, they don't need me to for the consumer-facing model. They need us for the franchisor part of that model, right? So PE's understanding that franchising is a business unto itself, and they're going to want the playbook. They're going to want the intellectual property, right? So I'm declaring we're moving into 3.0, and we'll either reinvent it and reimagine it, or it's going to be done to us, so we're going to be left behind.
Right.
So anyway, what I did is I wrote the 3.0 ideological and strategic franchisor playbook, and I'm putting it out into the marketplace as a draft. And then I'm going to set up a website, and I'll probably do the LinkedIn group where people can just contribute to their comments and their stories, or just debate the points. Okay. And then we'll release the final sometime in early 2020, but as a kind of a wiki book.
Love it.
That franchisors use. But I'm gonna give you you're one of the guys I put down for a first look.
Yeah, I would love to provide feedback.
Yeah, and then because you're somebody I'd like to work together on other things. You're creative.
Yeah, I like the topics too. I appreciate that. Joe, I appreciate all of that feedback. I think it's valuable. I appreciate you spending the time to look at the sites. Obviously, this chat could go on for hours, and there's plenty more that we need to talk about. But I just want to say thanks. I appreciate the relationship. I appreciate you giving some insight. I think this is helpful.
A great interview, and thanks for bringing up what I think are really important discussions that we need to be having.
Yeah.
As leaders within the franchisor community.
We'll keep it going. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.